You're listening to Awards Magnet, a Gold Derby podcast with hosts Debra Birnbaum, Joyce Ng, and me, Christopher Rosen. If you'd like to be part of the show, send us an email at slugfests@goldderby.com. We'll do weekly mailbag episodes and all the stuff you love on Awards Magnet. Now, stay tuned for the show. Welcome back to Awards Magnet. I'm Christopher Rosen. I'm joined by Debra Birnbaum and Joyce Ng. Guys, how are you? With a busy weekend, there was so little to talk about, it seems like.
Yeah, did anything happen? I didn't really see anything. I don't know. Quiet weekend.
No, nothing. No controversy.
I think it was the Grammys. That's all.
Maybe the Grammys. Maybe Beyonce made some news. And there's some other little story in the awards space.
Yeah, what was it? I don't even know. What was it?
You can't even call it like the tweet heard around the world. It was like the tweets, the firestorm.
So many. Karla Sofía Gascón at the center of just an unprecedented, I would argue, controversy about her offensive social media past, and then several apologies and clarification statements since those were unearthed last week.
It's just like doubling, tripling, and quintupling down. Like every day is something new.
It's beyond going rogue. I think now it's irresponsible behavior. And I think at this point, you sort of have to look beyond the studio and her personal reps. I think This is at her feet. Like whatever's happening, she's doing it herself.
Oh yeah, totally. I've seen so many like comments and tweets online being like, how is Netflix not doing anything? It's like, Netflix cannot control her. She's like, Netflix does not want this happening. She's obviously doing this on her own.
Yeah, 100%. Like at this point, let's stop looking at the Netflix and the personal reps. This is completely her. Clearly.
Like she's an adult. She has her own phone. She can email, text people. That's how she set up the CNN and Espanol interview on her own.
Clearly, This is not any kind of like studio or campaign strategy going on here. This is something she thinks that she's going to do it better. And unfortunately, it's like, I always joke, like when you start coloring and you color outside the lines, just keep making it worse. Oh, honey, you're digging yourself a grave, and it's getting deeper and deeper. And the unfortunate part is that she's taking the film down with her.
Yeah, because the normal course of action when stuff like this happens, whatever kind of controversy or non-controversy during award season, is you apologize and then you lay low. And then people will forget, like the news cycle moves on and there'll be tons of new controversies coming up, but then people will forget and like it'll die down. And I think that was the hope on Thursday night with like her first very perfunctory statement that was from Netflix. And it's like, okay, like maybe she'll take a step back from like the press and like all the upcoming awards and stuff. And then, like everyone else involved with the movie can make their own statements like Zoe Saldana did on Friday and then sort of distance themselves from it. And then, like people can move on and separate her a little bit from the movie. But no, every day it's just been something else. And then you just keep it in the news like that. You're reminding everyone of it so they can't forget about it. And each day the quotes and the statements are worse and worse.
And what it's really doing, as we've seen that in our odds, is it's taking the film down in other categories. Like the Best Actress race was already pretty much
She was
done.
Already last.
She was already last. She wasn't winning. Demi was in the front runner. There's a conversation to be had about whether Fernanda can overtake her. Fine. Like that's that category. But when you look at things like international film, which now is in play, when you look at Best Picture, when you look at even Zoe, who we all thought was a lock, that's where you started to see it bleed. And I always think too, I was having conversations with people over the weekend when it's starting to bleed into the normie conversation. It's not just voters who are talking about it, but the outside world.
Yeah, that's when it's like perforated other spaces.
I mean, it's unprecedented. This is unprecedented.
The two things it reminds me of, and both of them I was thinking a lot about this too. Obviously, we all have. And I was like, it reminds me of like when James Franco was obviously accused of sexual misconduct during Me Too, and he seemingly had an Oscar nomination like in play for The Disaster Artist.
He won the Golden Globe.
And was clearly like tracking towards getting that like fifth spot. And then, the LA Times came out with all their reporting and he just was then forgotten, right? And like snubbed basically. But it felt like that was the reason behind that was because of the controversy around what happened with him in real life. And then the other thing I keep thinking of, which is after obviously the Oscar after the voting even happened was Will Smith slapping Chris Rock, which came up again this weekend, obviously, because Will Smith was at the Grammys. But that's what this feels like, but nothing at this level where it was after the nominations, before voting starts, and really can impact like what's happening. Because like if this would have come out like after they had voted on the winners, right? After like after voting closed in February
18th.
I would have been incredibly uncomfortable and clearly would have been a mess. And, you know, would she have even shown up at the Oscars at that point and all this? And you never know, but it might have still would have, maybe it wins Best Picture or whatever. And it would have been very weird and awkward, like kind of like Will Smith winning after he slapped Chris Rock. But now I'm like, it's unprecedented. Like this is so, and the thing is, we don't really know how it will impact these other categories, but it does feel like Debra, like you were saying, it's completely in the normie world now and regular conversations. And that seems like really tough to overcome.
That's what's hard. And the fact there's so many things about it. It's not just one tweet. It's a barrage of tweets. There are so many headlines about it.
If it's one thing, you can apologize, move on. Like that was one misstep, right? But it's a pattern of behavior.
And so someone else asked me too, like, you know, do you think she's being singled out because she's a woman or that she's trans? Because you think about Casey Affleck and what happened, and he went on, you know, with Manchester by the Sea. But the fact that it's the barrage, it's the sheer amount of noise that's surrounding it. And the fact is, she's also complicit in creating the noise, that it's sort of hard to feel bad for her.
Yeah, that's why, the normal thing to do would be to apologize and lay low.
Right.
But like she hasn't been laying low. That's the problem.
And not to like, you know, the apologies have not necessarily, a lot of the tone of the apologies
very defensive.
are like,
right. And
I'm sorry you were offended, right?
This weekend was just over the top for me when she starts talking about tweets being doctored or people coming after her and being defensive. It's, you know what, your tweets are out there. They were out there for people to find. They found them.
Whatever, or like misinformation. It's like, they're your tweets.
Right. It's like your account. You're not, you know, I'm sorry that they were found, but they're out there. And I always say you live by social media, you die by social media. That's the problem. It's an even playing field. And it's great that there's no filter, but it's also terrible that there's no filter. And if you're going to enjoy the fact that you get to speak directly to your audience, you have to understand that you're speaking directly to your audience and your words are going to be taken to face value. And they were out there for anyone to find.
She's just very online and she's lost context. Like she needs her phone taken away. Yeah. And obviously she does not want her phone taken away. And then she could just get a new phone and just log in and continue. I thought it was hilarious that she deleted her Twitter account, but still kept Instagram, which is where her third statement came from, you know, and it's like she's trying to find whatever avenue there is to speak about. And all of her statements are very, you know, self-victimization. And obviously she has been targeted separately just from transphobes and stuff, but that's completely separate from the situation. And I feel like in her defenses, like she's conflating the two as well.
Right.
And it's not great, Bob. So, but I think like, you know, with the movie itself, like in the odds, it was only favored to win 3 categories: supporting actress, song for El Mal, and international. Like it wasn't even in first in Best Picture. It was behind The Brutalist. So now it's dropped to 4th, probably lower now as we're recording this. But I guess like the conversation, like if they were talking about it over the past few days, it makes it sound like it was on track to win like 11 Oscars or something. And like, that's not the case. Like if you're in the know, it's only predicted to win 3, wasn't even first in Best Picture. But obviously this can affect things. But with Zoe, I think like she can still emerge unscathed because she is innocent in all of this, you know, like she has nothing to do with this. Like she already made a pitch perfect statement on Friday at that Q&A that Karla was supposed to attend, but was absent for obvious reasons. And, you know, Zoe denounced the posts and said, you know, she didn't support them. And then she accepted, the London Film Critics Award yesterday on Sunday. And she was so emotional and was like, I was not expecting this, especially now. But obviously, you know, like voting happened before all this exploded too. But I think like, you know, it would be wrong to penalize her for something else somebody else did. And it kind of reminds me a little bit of like Cate Blanchett and Blue Jasmine. Like she was the out and out front runner for that 11 years ago. And then in February was when Dylan Farrow wrote her op-ed in the New York Times about Woody Allen. And the discourse around that was like, oh, will this affect Kate? And it did not affect Kate because it's like separating a completely different individual from the accused or whatever.
It's still the same film that everyone loved and supported and voted for and got all these nominations.
And then the issue is also like the Netflix or like the campaign platform was about, progressive values and everything. I think that's like why this is so naughty for everything. Cause it's like, it's like about inclusivity and embracing the LGBTQ community. And then it's like the star of your film, a trans actress, harbors these bigoted views.
Isn't it interesting? I mean, I'm not going to like go back to the whole category fraud debate, but it wouldn't be interesting if Zoe were the lead actress and campaigning for the lead. It would be a completely different conversation because then she would be the face of the film and lead actress. And then suddenly it would feel like, oh, she's the she's the representative party of all of this rather than Karla being the one that's out there. It's just, but again, we can't rewrite history. I guess the question for me, and I would put this out to you, like, can voters kind of put this behind them? Like, what's the win that they're going to get that
I think it could still win Zoe. I mean, I didn't have it winning Best Picture before this, so
I did. I had it winning Best Picture.
I did, and I switched.
And I think it will not win Best Picture now.
I don't think voters can get past it anymore.
I keep going back to, there was a Variety report. It was like a lot of awards experts and stuff, and like we've talked to people too, but like just in general. And the piece ended with this. I pulled up the quote because it just stuck with me so much. It was like, they have to hope Karla didn't just give all these Oscar voters a good reason to vote against their movie. One strategist said, "You want people to feel excited about their choice, not ashamed." And I just cannot imagine a world where even the biggest fan of the movie, or even if you're like, oh, like I'm sure there are, there's 10,000 Oscar voters, right? I'm sure there are some that have maybe similar views to what Karla Sofía Gascón is expressing here, right? Like obviously it's not, bigoted views are not unique to her. But even if you're like, oh yeah, I want to stick it to, I don't know a world where you could vote for the movie and not think about this and feel weird about it, or
especially
like,
if she keeps making it worse. That's the problem.
To me, Emilia Pérez and Brutalist were always neck and neck. To me, it was like an even thing, and I was swayed towards Emilia just because of the sheer number of nominations. Brutalist was about, it's like a cinematic achievement, and there's a huge, strong narrative there. And so, to me, this tips the scales a little bit. And I agree with you, Chris. Like, I think it sort of gives you a little bit of an icky feeling when you go to vote for it. And that's unfortunate because, again, nothing's changed except this. And it's very, we keep going back to can you separate the art from the artist? Can you separate that? And unfortunately, this is what campaigning is. This is why we call it a campaign all the time.
And not only is it art from the artist, but I think like Joyce was saying there too, like, I think the movie, in addition to being a movie that people really liked, and I love The Swing, I think the progressive values and like what it is saying about the industry and what the industry wants to say, we've seen that like Oscar voters like that. They want the movie, the Best Picture winner to say something, right? Like Coda, about disability rights, or Everything Everywhere All at Once, or, Moonlight, Parasite. All these movies say something about what the Oscars are feeling and thinking. And I think now this is like, you can't separate this. You can't feel good at like if regardless of the movie,
it just undercuts their whole campaign.
Yeah, it just is not. It's not what you want. I do hope that like Zoe Saldana does not get penalized. I was really moved by her London Film Critics Circle speech. It totally worked on me. I thought it was wonderful. It was like I was kind of tearing up. She seemed like genuinely emotional about it and like really surprised. And like Joyce was saying, like the voting happened before this, so maybe the outcome would have. Who knows how the outcome would have shifted? But I really think that like she's worked with so many people. She's obviously been a star for so long, and like this is like her big moment. Like James Cameron talked about that like back in like December, where he was like, oh, this is like her time. And I just feel like it is her time, and for her to like get penalized for this controversy would be like a real bummer to me. I just think it would be pretty sad. You
could say this would create more sympathy for her.
Right.
Yeah, it could.
So
it really could.
Why don't we take a quick break and we can talk about the Critics' Choice Awards, because I do think there's like pieces of this conversation into the
closed.
Certainly,
4 weeks ago.
We'll talk about this when we come back. But let's take a quick break and we'll come back and talk about the Critics' Choice Awards. All right, and we're back to talk about the Critics' Choice Awards and Emilia Pérez and all this stuff. And like Joyce was saying there before we went to break, voting for this closed a long time ago. Like this show was delayed twice. It was supposed to be during phase 1 voting, right?
The ceremony was supposed to be on January 12th and voting closed on January 10th. But obviously delayed because of the wildfires.
Right. So now the show is
this
all weekend.
Karla Sofía Gascón her own wildfire. You may hear the names Emilia Pérez a lot at the winners at the Critics' Choice. Do we think so?
it's interesting because like critics clearly did not, or highbrow critics did not like this movie really at all, right? Like, so like I wasn't sure if it was ever going to win Best Picture, but I do think Zoe Saldana will win Best Supporting Actress, it feels like to me. And I do think like this is one of the headlines of as I'm watching this, because like we all know it's not an industry show, it's not an industry award show, but industry is watching it. And I think like if she wins and gives this kind of speech like we saw at London Film Critics or even at that Q&A in London on Friday, I do think like that will help right her ship even further, right? Because I think if she is like genuinely moved by this win and like kind of gives a similar speech, that will help her. So that's like one of the big things I'm looking at. I don't know what else Emilia Perez will win on Friday.
It can win
international feature,
international, unless they make it a tie with something. But so then it'll be interesting. Who wants that?
They do love their ties.
They do love their ties, and it's been a month, so who knows what's been happening with those votes? Like who's been keeping track of them? But I guess like it could also be because they often just shunt certain categories into a bumper in between commercials. So maybe they could just do that with foreign language film.
Interesting.
Like
that'll be interesting just to sort of
they've done that with a lot of below the line. It's like, oh, these are the other winners tonight, and it's like costume design and stuff. They
and
did
also,
it too.
Who's going to come out to accept it too? Because they tend to do that too, especially if no one's there to accept.
Yeah, and they've even done it to the screenplay awards, much to Sally Field's chagrin when Lincoln won.
Mm-hmm.
And Tony Kushner didn't get to give a speech on TV.
So let's talk about a category that's definitely in contention, which is Best Actor. Again, this one's definitely up for a tie, and maybe this one is one they think they'll end up doing a tie for it. So who do you think wins this one? Chris, what do you think?
I kind of thought, I guess Adrian Brody. I don't really know it. I'm trying to think like this is the silly thing about this. Like we're saying, like it's February, we're recording this on February 3rd. The show started 7th. The voting happened on early January. So
January
I'm like
3rd to 10th.
I'm trying to figure out like what people
had momentum happened yet.
I don't think it had happened yet. So I think it would be Adrian Brody here instead of Timmy, but Timothée Chalamet could still win. And I guess I don't want to speak for Joyce because I don't think she thinks, but Debra, I think you and I are both like, oh, I think Timothée Chalamet could win an Oscar, and like the momentum is there for a complete unknown. And I'm like, I think he just needs to get up and give a speech at one of these things though, right? Like as great as his campaign has been, like he needs to just be up there talking and accepting an award. He even joked about that on Saturday Night Live. So I'm like, I do think it would be great if he won here, but I just think because of when the voting was happening, that it'll probably be Brody, and he'll win again, and we'll see. But if it was a tie, that would be great. Why not?
Yeah, I have Adrian just because of the voting timeline. Like that happened, like the voting started January 3rd, Globes were January 5th, which Adrian won, and then there were 5 more days for them to vote. And I think it's different from 3 years ago when the ceremony was delayed because of Omicron, but they pushed that back earlier, like the postponement happened earlier. And they moved it from January to March, the ceremony. So final voting for the winners had not happened yet. And I think had final voting happened before the move, they would have awarded Kristen Stewart, who was, Film Twitter fave, the regional critics winner, Kristen Stewart, and her entire trajectory changed when she lost like the Twitter Globe, which went to Nicole Kidman. But then people are still like, whatever, like the Globes are not televised. They're like fake canceled. But then days later, that same week, she was snubbed by SAG, and I think had Critics' Choice happened when it was originally scheduled 3 years ago, like 3 days before SAG, like Kristen Stewart would have won. Instead, like 2 months later, happened in March after Jessica Chastain won SAG. Jessica Chastain won that award, so I think because of the voting schedule, like I think Adrian would still win this. I wouldn't be shocked if Timmy won though, but I don't know if they'll do a tie here. I can see them doing a tie in like actress.
So a good segue. So what happens in actress?
I think Demi will win just because like Substance is still the cool movie, like the Film Twitter movie. But Mikey Madison has been the regional critics leader in terms of wins. So I do think like had Mikey won the Globe, it would just been Mikey like straight out, winning this. But since Demi won the Globe, I think Demi and like that speech, I think like she can win this. But I could see this one being a tie. They haven't done a tie in a while.
I don't think they're gonna do a tie.
Yeah, I think it'll just be Demi.
And I think they're gonna want that speech at their event.
Yeah, that's the other thing, right? Like I think they want, and especially like we were saying, like when voting was happening, Demi's speech, we're still talking about it on February 3rd. Like that was like, at January 5th. It was like a big deal, right? Like it was so incredibly like that was like really a
It was
sticky
very
moment.
much top of mind.
The
And so I
last time
think
they did a tie here
yeah.
was with Lady Gaga and Glenn Close, because Glenn won the Globe, but then they still didn't predict the Oscar winner with Olivia Colman. So
Yeah, I feel like the acting winners will be like what we're.
Chalk.
I think we'll get like the expected winners here. Like I feel
Right.
like
yeah.
like I think Zoe will win, and that'll be really important. I think like even Brady Corbet will win for director. I'm in picture. I guess like The Brutalist is in first in the odds. I'm like I assume that will win, but I really think Honora could win. I don't know though. I'm
Well,
like
I was
this is
thinking,
another
what do you
one.
think happens in ensemble?
I could see Conclave winning that, because like their ensemble winners are not normally the SAG ensemble winners. Like I think Wicked is winning ensemble at SAG.
I kind of thought, what if Sing Sing wins ensemble? Like, is that?
Interesting. I was thinking Honora. I don't know why. I just thought it was a way to give something to Honora because it's such a critical favorite.
I thought maybe Sing Sing, because I was like, again, thinking of when this voting was happening, and that was still a fringe. Like now we all know, like it did not make it in for Best Picture, and obviously it's like
Right.
it felt like, but at the time, it still felt like a movie that was like, oh, it just needs like a little push, and like it'll get in. And I'm thinking like, what if that was like part of?
It's a great story if it does.
It would have been really nice, and then they get them up there on stage, and like at least I had thought all season, like when you get the story is so wonderful, and like the
Right.
act, like get them up there on stage, like Clarence Macklin speaking on behalf of the film, like we saw that at the Gotham Awards, like people really responded to that, and they were moved, and so I was like, maybe
But
that's what they
no
want
one's
on
seen
the
the
show.
movie. Now
no
you
one's
can
seen
watch
the
it at
movie.
home, though,
I
guys.
know.
Watch it at home.
Maybe the critics saw it. It's the Critics' Choice Awards. They had to have seen it.
Their past ensemble winners, Critics' Choice: Oppie, Glass Onion, Belfast, Trial of the Chicago 7, Irishman, The Favorite, 3 Billboards, Moonlight, Spotlight, Birdman.
Wow.
So what does
American
that
Hustle.
tell you?
Silver Linings. So
Populist?
yeah, it's populist, and it's not necessarily the SAG ensemble winner.
So maybe Conclave or
Maybe
Honora or Wicked.
Yeah.
I don't know. Not Wicked. We all think Wicked's going to
Or maybe it's any of the. Maybe it's any of the.
The only one I get, no
I
disrespect,
can
because
see it being Wicked, though. Like I think it's
Now
probably
I'm thinking
Wicked or Conclave.
Like having you read off that list, now I think it's Wicked.
No disrespect to Saturday Night, which I really liked, and one of the few, the proud, who liked it. But that is the only one of these I would not be. I guess, and even Emilia Prince could win this. I mean, at this stage, who knows? Like, you know what I mean? Because of when voting was happening. But that's the only one I would say. It probably does not have a strong shot to win a Saturday Night. So,
I mean, it goes back to the art. I think Critics' Choice probably does vote like, giving something to everybody.
Yes,
because I do think they will vote down the ballot like that, and that is a way to give something to Wicked.
Yeah, that's true.
What if Ari wins instead of Zoe?
I would be shocked. I just think that won't happen.
I don't see that happening with Critics' Choice.
We'll see if that happens at SAG, I guess.
Yep.
SAG will be definitely way more responsive to this whole controversy than anyone else. Like they're the most online of all the groups.
All right, we have a few more Guild Awards to talk about that are happening. It's a busy Guild weekend. Yes. We can go to the DGA quickly because I think we all agree who's going to win DGA. Not much of a debate there. I think it would be a shocker if Brady doesn't win. Anyone disagree?
No.
I don't know. Yeah, it would. It's hard to even think about who would be second there. I guess we talked about this when we were doing our predictions, like maybe like a pre-Emilia Perez scandal, Jocko Audiard, or maybe Sean Baker, but I don't know. It just seems like unlikely that anybody but Brady Corbet will win at DGA and subsequently win at the Oscars. So.
And everyone has Ramel for first time.
Yeah, I think Ramel is first-time director. He's beloved by that branch. It's a good way of acknowledging the film.
Yeah, that was great. Look at that. It was so quick. We did it so
quick.
fast.
I mean,
it was wonderful.
The only other question I would say about DGAs, but I think we all agree this too, they continue their track record of the DGA winner going on to win the director at the Oscars.
Yeah, I think
There's only been 8 times in its history that is not matched. So in 76 years, so 8 times in 76 years.
And I think that feels pretty safe this year too.
Yeah, and the last time was
barring any other future controversies.
Yes.
I don't know. I feel they need to caveat. Like, I saw this one coming. So.
Yeah, I know. And it's kind of
everything.
Stuff changes so fast. You don't even know.
I mean, does anyone remember the Brutalist AI controversy?
No.
Not anymore.
I really thought that was such a big deal. Moving on.
Yes.
All right. So let's talk about the Producers Guild Awards.
So voting for this closed on January 30th, which is the same day the Karla scandal blew up when her tweets were exposed. And they use a preferential ballot just like the Oscars. So I don't think we will be able to learn much from it, or see how much the scandal has impacted PGA because voting closed the same day.
Yes. I guess I would. So the thing I was wondering, and we've been all wondering, is how would Emilia Perez play on a preferential ballot, which we'll get to see here. I do think it could probably have affected a little bit, but like, how many people are waiting till last minute to vote?
And there's so many of them. There's thousands.
There's a lot of people. So,
and especially because it's not an easy choice.
Yeah, and like the Best Picture race is so open anyway. Like we've talked about, there are 6 films that can win Best Picture at the Oscars. So I think it's obviously the scandal is a big deal, but I think it's like inaccurate to paint it as like this has completely torpedoed Emilia Perez's chances, as if it was like the out and out frontrunner like Oppenheimer was, you know?
Right.
So it's like, I guess it's like, because it sucks that this happened, you know, for obvious reasons, but also because like if Emilia doesn't win, I think a lot of people just be like, oh, it's because of the scandal. Whereas like it might have not won anyway, you know, because there were 5 other films in the race, in the thick of it. So we'll never know though.
So then what do we think is going to win PGA?
So I've had a Nora, but I'm thinking about switching to the Brutalist. I might just do Brutalist. So I'll have like double guilds for the Brutalist. I'm doing it right now.
Wow. Okay.
Wow.
I don't know.
Live changes.
Live changes. I love this.
I do a lot of live changes on these.
I don't know what to do. I kind of was like, I kept thinking Wicked.
I have 4 more days. So.
I kept thinking Wicked could win this and SAG Ensemble. I really think Wicked could win this just because people really like it. I feel like it's a consensus movie, and Mark Platt's obviously like a legendary producer and all these things. And I was like, what if it wins? But then I'm like, maybe it is just The Brutalist. And obviously I think there's such a wonderful story of from a producerial standpoint of this movie, to have it in under this incredible achievement for $10 million and like working with this incredibly auteurist filmmaker and all these challenges that went into making the movie. And it's actually done really well, relatively speaking, for like a movie like this. So not that all matters, but I do think it is a nice story, and I could see it winning too.
It's a celebration of filmmaking. It's an accomplishment.
Right. The other one,
it feels like, as much as people talk about the 3.5 hours, it's honestly not one of the knocks against it. It's not like
you don't hear the complaints about the length like you did about Flower Moon last year.
No, exactly.
But the other thing I was wondering is, like, of all the recent winners, or like, you know, like 1917 won here, right? Obviously, Big Short, La La Land, these movies that didn't win Best Picture but won. I'm like, what if it is like a complete unknown? Like, could that win here? Like,
there we go with my dark horse theory. With something just comes.
I'm just like, I could see it win. It does feel like Big Short-ish to me in terms of like it's the audience it's reaching and the type of people who like it, I guess. And I was like, what if it ends up winning here? And that would be like, it doesn't necessarily mean to win Best Picture. Like, I could see it winning Best Picture, but I do think it has like a stronger shot than maybe at least I was giving it credit for here. And I was wondering, I don't know what to do. I think I have the Brutalist right. I have Wicked right now and the Brutalist and Complete Unknown. That's my top 3, and I will change this.
We haven't even mentioned Conclave, which is like so middle of the road and consensus.
It could easily be in there too. I don't know. This one, I'll be very curious to see what wins. And I guess depending on what wins, it will help confirm biases or priors that I've thought like of other movies, I feel like. So,
I mean, like both of these are on Saturday, which is just amazing scheduling.
I know. It's going to be a fun film weekend.
It could be a really big night for the Brutalist. Like, I mean, we're already, like, because, like, DGA is probably
I guess
safe.
Here's my question for you.
Yeah.
Same question for DGA, but
Please.
Not the same predictor rate. Does the winner of the PGA mean solidify your Best Picture contender?
So PGA has only existed for 35 years, the awards, and they've not aligned 10 times. And the last time was 1917 and Parasite. And then before that was obviously La La Land and Moonlight, and then The Big Short and Spotlight. So that's in the preferential era.
Right. And I guess, so I don't know. Like,
I'm just saying, so like, do you think, given all of that, given the history, knowing that everything has changed, does that mean that I'm going to make you answer the question?
What I mean, like, if The Brutalist wins PGA, like, I'll probably have it for Best Picture, because it's like, I mean, I said last week, like, I'll probably just pick whatever PGA picks of like the main 3 last week, which hit everything, which was The Brutalist, Anora, and Emilia Perez, sadly. No more Emilia Perez, probably, but I think, like, Anora, I think it really does need to win something big, and it hasn't, like, it gets the nominations, but it hasn't been able to give a speech anywhere yet. You know, it hasn't been able to win anything yet. So
the speeches are great. They really matter.
Speeches are great. Like, again, really matter. You know, again, it's about the art, but it's also about the campaign.
I was looking at these winners. I was like, to me, like, The Brutalist does feel more like 1917 and La La Land, in that, like, if it lost Best Picture after winning the PGA, but the movies that beat like La La Land, like Moonlight and Parasite were passion, so much passion. I'm like, I don't really know. Like this year, I think if Brutalist wins PGA and also DGA, I guess I'm like, we have yet to see. I think we had anticipated maybe Emilia Perez being that passion because people really liked it and like the message we were saying earlier. But now with that maybe not happening as much because of the controversy, what is the passion? What would be the pivot? I guess, and I don't know what movie that is.
There is passion for the Brutalist, like it stands. It's not as loud, obviously, like as loud as the Parasite passion, which just really permeated a lot of different, bodies, like, just normie fans too. Like I had like normie friends asking me about Parasite 6 years ago, but I think there is passion for the Brutalist. It's just not like this year is weird. We know this year is weird. So I guess it doesn't take as much passion as it did in the past.
But I would say the Brutalist, it's about something which matters.
Yeah.
It's passion and it's a celebration of filmmaking. Mm-hmm. So it just ticks a lot of boxes.
It's a metaphor for filmmaking.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So it's kind of like hits all those Hollywood boxes. And I'm not saying like in the absence of a really strong competitor, which would have been Emilia Perez, but has been severely weakened.
I think so. And that maybe clears the field then. And the Brutalist wins this weekend twice. And then even though it won't win at SAG, maybe Wicked wins at SAG and it's like Black Panther-esque, right? Where it's like your Hidden Figures-esque where you're like, oh, it's a great win and has no real chance of winning Best Picture. And then like the Brutalist goes all the way. And I don't know, maybe we were overthinking this the whole time, but I don't think so. Like, I don't know.
I mean, I think like I have the Brutalist at BAFTA too.
Right. The Brutalist I do think can win BAFTA too.
So
we'll find out next week.
This is great. Yeah. We can wrap up there. Then that's great. Email us at slugfest@goldderby.com. We'll talk more about this next week. I guess we'll do BAFTA picks maybe. Is that next week? What do you think,
guys?
That's
next week.
Next week. Wow. I can't, it says this never stops, guys. So, thank you for listening. Chris Rosen, Debra Birnbaum.
What will Karla post between now and then?
No, I don't even think about it. Nothing. Hopefully,
where's she going next?
For the sake of our pals at Netflix, hopefully absolutely nothing. I want her to log off. Please log off.
We need to send them something. Just
yes.
They have not slept since Thursday.
Oh God. All right. Bye everyone.
Bye. Thank you.
Bye.
Thanks for listening to Awards Magnet. The show is produced by Aaron Greenwald. Our logo is designed by Chelsea Sikora. To be part of the show, email us at slugfests@goldderby.com and follow us on social media @goldderby.